How is everybody? You all doing marvelously well? Yes?
Can you hear me? All right, great.
So, this is the great Jaycen Joshua. I was pointing at the mic and speaking. So let's give him a round of applause.
And this is the great, legendary Warren Hunt. Let's give everybody applause for him.
That means a lot. Thank you. How much do I owe you? Cash, check?
No charge.
Look, so, to be really blunt, Mark said, what do you guys want to talk about? And we're like, well, whatever you like. And he goes, cool, can you talk about the future of AI in music production? And talk about speculation.
I mean, I think we're so early on in the realm of thinking of AI in music production. It is speculation. It's. Would you say it was met with resistance when it first came out by the collective creatives?
I think it's very age group dependent. Let's be honest. But it's. I recently did a documentary on Abbey Road, and we were talking about how the classical musicians at that point in recording in the 30s and 40s didn't believe in recording classical music. They said it was purely performance-based, and you should never record it. So it's always the generation before that are always most resistant. I feel like if you're an incredibly talented person, whatever the technology available is, you will do something with it that's creative.
I think speaking from a mixing point of view, I don't think it's quite as advanced as it is for production. I think production, what a lot of people don't realize is that there's been a lot of producers, Max Martin probably the biggest one, that uses a math sort of kind of application into some of their production, meaning that they think of, okay, this melody this many times on this many pre-choruses is what the key is. And then if you have someone or something rather telling you exactly, okay, last year E major was the key of all keys.
Sure.
Use that key. Three note melodies are the best melodies because da 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 da. Why wouldn't I try it?
Sure.
Why wouldn't I try it?
Yeah, I mean, Chuck Berry is probably one of the most important musicians that ever lived. And he wrote how many hundreds of songs in ADE, ADE, ADE? Are we now saying that ADE is redundant because every song he wrote was 1-4-5? He even used similar melodies and similar lyrics, but he's Chuck frickin' Berry. He pretty much invented rock and roll as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, it's a weird place.
I'm glad I'm not dealing with it. I'm glad. The one thing that I can say is in software and in software design, it's gone a long way. I think a lot of the newer plugins that are going to come out are going to be AI-driven. There's a couple of leaders in that, Soothe being one, that is an AI-driven plugin that's revolutionized, I guess you could say, many facets of the audio world. But when it comes to mixing per se and having artificial intelligence tell you what your ear is telling you, it just seems a little bit too subjective for me. But they're telling me they can teach a computer to basically have my ear and do a lot of the heavy lifting before I even touch a mix. That would be absolutely amazing. Like, could you imagine having whatever technology there was, and you walk up to your console and you're ready to mix, and basically AI has done a lot of the heavy lifting for you, whether it's, taking off the resonant frequencies, what have you, or whatever it's learned. I just think for me, I'm going to be very, 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 very receptive when it comes to
That's
my
a really
area.
interesting point, because if it's reinforcing something you already do creatively, that's very different than doing what I think everybody fears, which is sort of the lowest common denominator stuff. Is this our musical version of the only movies that are successful now are sequels?
Well, I think that's the kind of fear that I have, being that technology has given the people who I would say don't have the greatest ears in the world, but gives them the ability to play in the area or play in a field where back in the day you had to really be an engineer to be an engineer. Now you just need to be a good Pro Tools operator and you can get far. With regards to that being equated to AI, I think the best way for us to figure out how to maneuver with it is just to wait and take time and take a minute to understand what we're dealing with. We're so in the beginning. I'm trying to figure out what to say about AI. We gotta.
I know what you mean. Well, I mean, look, you work in cutting edge genre. Yeah. Music you work on is what everybody is going to be emulating next year. So you are the perfect person to be talking about this with, because the reality is this is probably the first industry that's going to hit the hardest. Do you know Flostradamus? Yeah. You know Floss? Yeah. So my wife's initially was friends with him, and I became friends with him, and you know, he's been in this for a while now. And I think one of the advantages to AI that he's seeing is that he can take a song that, say, you wrote and say, well, look, maybe Christina Aguilera is going to be good on this. I've got the AI technology that I can emulate her vocal, send it into her people, and even though it won't be exactly how she would sing it, and it's not going to be what she's going to do, it's going to be close enough for her not to have to bother running into a studio, spending $1,000, and then spending another $500 to have somebody comp it, to find out whether it sounds good or not. So there are good reasons for this, but like anything, I suppose we're all in fear of how it's going to be manipulated. But I feel like my gut reaction when it first became such a big talking point was the only thing it's really going to affect is the average, not the cutting edge, not the would never have thought of it kind of music, something twisted and weird, new. It's just going to be the generic. That's just going to suffer. And in some ways, I don't really care. If it's just like that bed music in some terrible, Kardashian kind of thing, sorry, but you know what I mean. If it's just one of those TV shows and it's in the background that's now being written by AI, do I really give a crap? I feel like that's the thing that's going to be first affected. I don't think it's going to affect some kid, in his parents' bedroom.
Making that new exactly. Sound that no one's ever heard before. Exactly. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah, and if anything, if it levels the playing field for some people, then good. Every piece of cutting-edge music that we all grew up listening to didn't, maybe there's an exception to somebody, but doesn't usually come out of Beverly Hills, by some kid in there. It usually comes out of a very poor area where somebody is pushing against something, trying to create something new. It has to have that edge. It has to have, there's a music for me as a kid, and you and everybody here, was rebellion, wasn't it? It was pissing off your parents. So if there's something that levels the playing field, that comes down and allows that kid to do something, because there's a tool out there which allows the idea in his head to come out. Because the only people I hear really complaining about it tend to be of a certain age group, a certain social economic class, not really connected to that kind of like edgy, new, pushing the boundaries kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So, I mean, right now, in the production part of it, I think the most that I've seen was the ability of stripping vocals or stripping the music from the vocals and having, which I still don't understand how they do, but having, taking a stereo file and then making vocals, making drums, making hi-hats, making unbelievable separation of it, and then having the ability as producers to take that loop, to take that sample, create something new, create something better. It's only going to help people. However, it is going to make the medium really medium.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be an abundance of it.
Right. You're 100% right. I'm thinking about, you remember like early 90s hip-hop was all about sampling off of classic records. And
everybody was, hey, what is this? Yeah. This is bullshit. real
Going to be
musicians.
the death of real musicians. Well, I don't know if anybody's ever looked at that little thing called the internet, but have you noticed when you go on to YouTube or whatever, there's a billion like virtuoso guitar players, sax players, whatever. Musicianship is at its highest level it's been in decades. Have you noticed that? Like everybody's like shredding and learning. Well, you know what? When music like that happened, it introduced people to classic records and classic playing. Like there wouldn't be a Snarky Puppy and all the derivatives of that if it wasn't for that. You know, you've got to get the music in front of people. And there's also that kind of reaction. What I love is like the more homogenized music gets, the more perfect it gets, the more human beings rebel against it and want to do something else. Punk rock came about in Britain, at least our punk rock, in the late 70s, because everybody was tired of listening to prog and it being so highbrow and so elitist, and they wanted to be like, here's the streets. Two-tone, anybody know, two-tone and ska? That was our country, well, my country in Britain, rebelling against the establishment because the Houses of Parliament and the House of Lords were all a bunch of 60-plus-year-old white men. And yet our country didn't look like that. So this genre came from Coventry, and it was a complete mixed race, mixed punk meets, reggae and ska. So the more it goes in one direction, the more opportunity there is for rebellion. So it's almost like bring it on, because what some kid's going to wake up and go, you know what? I'm going to do something oblique to that and kick down some doors. So, yeah, everybody's always afraid of something, but I feel like it actually increases the opportunity for creativity.
I have no problem in admitting that I'm a very, 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 very novice when it comes to AI. But what I can say is that it has changed my life in the software world. But more importantly, it's not being afraid of something that you have no idea what you're looking at. And not being passed by. I mean, I know a lot of people will probably be like, you know what, the AI stuff is not for me. But then that might put you behind the 8 ball because people might have an advantage that you could easily have had if you just, try to wrap your fingers around it. So I guess my main thing would not be to tell people is not be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Anybody here want to talk about mixing?
Yeah. Anybody want to not talk about AI? We've got one of the world's greatest mixers here. So, questions, how should we do this? Shall I take my mic? Questions, please.
Very interesting talk. I like it. My single point where I really liked your talk. I think it was very cool to see the perspective of these professionals. I'm more from the other side. I'm a developer. And my point of view is that...
Hold on, what do you develop?
Audio plugins. Not AI. No AI at all.
What kind?
It's a vocal rider, but I don't want to make promotion here.
Vocal rider.
For example.
We all need one of those.
For example, yes. But my point is that I think the amount of control is important you have over the AI. Imagine like you can prompt the AI with a detailed text telling how your stuff should sound like and telling her about the references, etc. I think if that becomes possible, I think that's a big step, and then it becomes so important that it's not only for the mediocre. And I think we gave human intelligence so much time to develop. We need to give AI a little bit more time to develop as well. And I think it's sadly, but I think it's almost impossible to stop the development.
Well, I just heard that Universal did $1 billion deal with Google on licensing the entire catalog to them so their AI can learn all the beautiful voices that they have of yesteryear to help develop. Because like you said, it's only going to take a matter of time, and you have to give AI the actual idea for it to follow. And for the fact that Universal is willing to give such a company as Google all their intellectual property lets you know that these companies are all in. You know what I mean? You'll hear a Frank Sinatra song on some commercial coming out pretty fucking soon.
Yeah, I mean that's the reality. Plus, it's the music industry, and it's always the chase of the buck, isn't it? Why not get in on it before somebody? If they don't own it and they don't own that opportunity, then it will just get taken from them. Only And that's a good thing, because what happened is, Napster came out and took everybody by surprise. And I remember being consultant A&R with Sony back in like early 2000s, and there was even a memo flying around, if you remember this, going, this whole digital MP3 thing's not going to last. And now they're not stupid.
Yeah.
They're like, streaming's never going to take off. Now, obviously, they're much smarter, and they're like, let's get in there, let's own a piece, let's get some licensing deals going. And so, yeah, look, the streaming revenue, not to get on that, but, it's went up 40% year over year for the last 4 or 5 years. People have got to get, like Jason's saying, they've got to get in there, they've got to co-own, they've got to license the stuff early, and it would be stupid not to.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What do you think about online AI-powered mastering services? I had, for instance, I had one of my tracks reviewed by Warren 2 weeks ago, and you said it sounded very professional.
There you go.
But I just, on my mix at home, I just had it on a little compression on a bus compressor. And then I thought, okay, I would try one of those mastering services. There were several. And
How'd it go?
Well, Warren said it sounded really professional.
Okay.
So, no, you only heard the day after.
Yeah, did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. I compared it A to B to my own mix, and it was not a big difference. So obviously the basis mix was already pretty good. I have to assume that it just enhanced the parts that I maybe could have done myself, but now it was just because I had to send it to Warren for the review. So I did just a quick mix. I think, okay, let's try and see what Warren thinks about it. And it turned out well. And I noticed also there's a big difference in the different mastering services that you had. And I have several subscriptions, and all they offer nowadays some mastering service. And the last one that really was good. I don't want to bash anyone, but I think the waves didn't sound good at all. And also from Plug-in Alliance I didn't like, but in fact I'm not a big fan of Stephen Slade's posture that he always takes, but that mix, for my opinion, came out as the best master.
Well, with me, I'm probably the wrong guy you're going to want to ask, because I just feel, I guess that's the best way I can say it, I feel. And sometimes, that's why I'm not too afraid of mixing with AI, because there's so many decisions to be made. I'm talking just putting early reflections on a snare. How are they going to get to know that? Like, how are they going to know the difference between what I'm thinking on one mix, which I wouldn't do, as opposed to the next mix, which I would do? But when it comes to mastering, it's 2 tracks. It's not too much to think about. But what if this happened? What if you took a couple seconds and tried to master it yourself and beat their master? I guarantee you probably could beat it.
Yeah. Well, normally I master it. I master it myself.
But have you ever tried that though? Have you ever went to a mastering site and then had them do it, and you're like, oh, this is pretty good, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to use this as my reference, and I'm going to beat it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time. So I don't know, Warren. Probably you might know way more than this me, because I've never. I don't think I've ever even thought about sending my. Have you sent a mix to a?
I haven't done it yet. I should probably do that video where I send a mix to 5 different places. Yeah, I should do.
Next episode.
We should do it and listen to it together. All right, you heard him say that. That'd be amazing. I feel like whenever I've used the fancy plugins, the kind of all-in-one, reads everything, ozone-y, I don't want to rip on any any companies, Isotope, whatever, all those people that make those kind of, and then you get preset number 4, which is like heavy metal, pop, whatever the genres I'm doing, if I hit that, they always give me the same result. Very nice, very pleasant, very even, very unexciting. I was talking to, this is my name drop, apart from Jaycen Joshua, I think the only other person I can mention in the same sentence in his, in the rock world, would be Bob Clearmountain. There's the only equal to Jaycen. Bob is an amazing mixer. And I said this to him a couple of months ago. I was like, is everything just starting to sound really soft and boring? And he's like, yeah. All the rock mixes are all like really even and really perfect. And it's just like, is everybody using so many fancy dynamic compressor, EQ, blah, 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 on every single bleeding instrument now that they're not making any mental decisions, and the excitement level has disappeared. Now everything's just really, oh, that's a nice mix. It's very nice, So I feel like that's the result I always get with all of those fancy plugins. Take any one of my mixes and just everything just starts to sound really, really nice. Nothing offensive, nothing's ripping my head off. Music's, well, not supposed to be, but lots of genres and styles of music are supposed to be kind of offensive, or supposed to be like, yeah, my dad hates this. Not like, my dad would really like this and it's really sweet and lovely. So that's usually what happens with those things for me. It just gets really boring and soft.
Hi.
Hi there.
Is there any AI plugin you use in the studio where you say, okay, I use this because it helps me a lot, and don't you think that through the possible AI plugins or tools that there will be a lot of people, you said it, that they come to the average place, and the big tank of people who are producing stuff will get bigger and crowded and crowded. It's already crowded. So what do you think about it? Is it this why people are afraid of the AI? Because now every kid can do a very good mix or can separate stuff they normally couldn't separate.
I've heard no AI-inspired stuff that can take somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and make them sound great. Anybody here heard anything like that? I've never used a DAW, but after I bought this plugin for $4.99, I am now blah 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 famous mixer. No, I don't. We're not even anywhere close to any of those kinds of things. I feel maybe, I don't know, because machine learning and AI has been a catchphrase for about 5 or 10 years now. So every other plugin that comes out, there's something in the literature which uses the word AI or machine learning, doesn't it? So we've been in this world, and so I like it. I think you use Soothe 2, don't you? I love Soothe 2. It's a great plugin. What does it do? It sits there and figures out all of these horrible peaks. I'm sure there's somewhere they could call it AI or machine learning. I'm sure they dumped in thousands and thousands of millions maybe of samples of stuff to figure out how to do that. So yeah, but Soothe 2, it might be the best vocal mixing plugin ever. It's great on overheads and badly recorded drums are too bright. Yeah. But you can't just put it on your mix and press a button and suddenly you're, Jaycen Joshua. It just doesn't work like that. I think that... it is? I'm going to pass you over.
Yeah, it's a great sidechain compressor too, but Soothe 2 is probably the leader in AI right now to me. I had an actual amazing discussion with the owner one day and was completely impressed by him. But I think for right now, these plugins, if I hear AI and the plugin's good, first of all, we all know what the good plugins are because we go on all the sites and, you hear and you kind of get the idea of like, oh, this is a good one, let me try this, let me try that. And then you hear it and you say to yourself, wow, I've never heard a compressor sound like Soothe 2. And to me, that's where AI, I hope, is taking us, where we're thinking of, like, for example, a lot of these plugins companies make plugins for yesteryear products. So, oh my God, we made another great rendition of the Fairchild. It's like, okay, got it. We have a million versions of it. They're all really, really, really good. But what about the plugin on stuff that I've never thought before? On things that have the ability to help me, like you say, become a better mixer when I'm a novice. And I honestly think, individually speaking, putting Soothe, like you said, on overheads and trying things out, putting Soothe obviously on a vocal and listening to what it does, it gives you the ability to take a step back and say to yourself, okay, in 5 to 10 years, when these plugins catch up to us, it's going to give me the ability to get this creative thought out. And to me, that's the key to mixing, is how fast I can get these ideas onto the mix and it to sound absolutely amazing. If I can get that thought out quick, I can go to the next thought, and next thing you know, I have a great mix in an hour, and now I can have fun. Now I can do the things that people don't hear or see or feel in mixes. So once again, I mean, at least we're back on AI. Great question, though. Thank you. In the back? Come on now, we can ask anything. You can get any...
Hi guys, thanks for doing this talk, and these were all really interesting questions. What do you guys think about AI composing or changing pre-composed parameters for video games based on the decision on the player? Have you anything heard about that?
No, I'll pass this to Warren.
Sounds logical, to be honest. You know, that sounds like a logical thing to do. I feel like, you know Mick Gordon, you all know Mick Gordon, incredible shredding metal guitar player, who's also a genius with video games, done some of the biggest video games of all time. When I talked to him about this, it was a pre-AI discussion, but yeah, he has to write, X number of themes for a game. Then he has to figure out, how they rotate for lengths of sections. Then, as you're saying, he has to write different variations, maybe within that. I'm not really a gamer, sorry. I spend too much. I've got kids that are gamers, but logically speaking, if you go to a different level, but it's incorporating something else, it has to have maybe the main theme, but it adds this bit in or takes out that. So I get it. So if there's something that's going to make his life a little bit easier, great. But he still has to write and record an amazing theme that he's amazing at doing. And he is, inarguably the best at that. I think it will just, it's exactly reinforcing Jaycen's point. You've got somebody who's a musical genius in that world that now is going to be able to do his job a little bit easier and maybe free himself up to write even more themes and more ideas. And it will free Jaycen up to mix that song quicker and better and be able to bring in new ideas, because now he can spend more time being creative and less time having to go, because he knows what he wants, but he might not have to hit 47 buttons to get to that place rather than hit 2. To me, it doesn't take away the creativity. I mean, it'd be stupid for us to think about this. Here we are, we're sitting on a stage with a microphone that doesn't have a cable in. You know what I mean? I think going wireless is going to change. You know what I mean? There's always something, isn't there, that we can complain about. But even 3 or 4 years ago, I think, just before COVID, I went to some of these panels and everybody had headphones on. And I don't think any of the headphones worked for more than 5 seconds. Do you remember, like 2019, I think it was NAMM, I was at a thing and everybody was like... You know what I mean? It was just ridiculous. Like nothing was working. And now look at it. We're all sitting here talking. They're doing mixing in there, and everybody's listening on headphones, including the person mixing. And you get my point. It's like, really, we're going to complain about this stuff? I think the fear is, I understand what you're saying, the fear of video games. But again, it's just the homogenized stuff that's going to get hit first. I don't think I really care about that. Then that just means the bar has to get high, doesn't it? If the average used to be here and now it's here, then you've got to be here. When the average gets to here, then you've got to be here. When the average gets to here, you've got to be here. I don't see any downside, Just seems like it's just a kick up the butt to do something better and more exciting. All the way over there. Quick, run, get it.
Got it. Thank you. I have a question about trends and production. You're seeing...
He's a lot hipper than I am.
Well, I would address it to you both, but I leave that to you. You see so many songs months before they come out when you mix them. Looking back over the last couple of years or even months up to now, do you see any trends? What do you think were like production elements, styles? What would you say right now, from what you know, where the new trend is going?
Being that I think I'm probably the best person to answer this question, just because I'm always looking for the next trend to jump on, from Latin music, from like when I first started out, I was a pop guy because the guys who I worked with, they were big time pop producers, and I was only mixing their stuff. And then I got kind of pigeonholed in that. And then I got pigeonholed because I fought really hard because I wanted to do rap music, but I wasn't getting any rap records. So I fought really hard and got it and built up my name. Then I became the rap guy. So I'm like, Jesus. and one thing Warren will tell you about this business, which really sucks, is that when you become really good, like say for instance you have that one hit, that's who you are now. You're Warren the rock guy. Warren probably will do an incredible Dr. Dre mix, but he won't get called because he's Warren the rock guy and I'm Jaycen the rap guy. But being that you're asking that question, I would ask that question all the time, like what's the next, what's the next? You know, unfortunately, I got into the Latin craze before, you know, right in the beginning. BTS is another example of a genre that I thought was absolutely amazing, that no one believed in, including my Korean baby's mother. She yeah, believe that. But to me, right now, the genre that it's probably already taken off, but is really going to probably take off even more. We all know Afro beats, but I would say Jersey House. Jersey House is the next, and I don't think it's just a fad. I think it's going to stick and stay for a minute because there's so many really good records. I think it's going to stick around just like regular house music, you know, no different from David Guetta to Calvin Harris, so on and so forth. So Jersey House and that rhythmic drum pattern is probably the next trend, which is probably already here.
Awesome, thank you so much.
In the front. Great questions, by the way, guys.
So I wanted to go back to AI a little bit because I...
Can I ask a question? And we're going to go right to you. Is AI really big in Germany? Because you guys, I mean, I'm telling you, in the States, there would probably be zero questions about AI. So I'm like, am I behind now? I'm like, am I not in the mix? Okay, go.
Well, the question I'm asking is because I mostly work in my bread and butter jobs are mostly mixing for film or for video content with video and a lot of speech, a lot of dialogue editing, this and that. And in that realm, there's way more AI plugins. There's like an AI plugin that removes noise, another one that removes like reverb, another one that brings it back, another one that does like spectral speech reconstruction and all that stuff. And I noticed in that field, those plugins are there to fix problems. And then what you do with that, you know, it's up. You fix all the problems, but then it's up to you to make it feel like a film and feel the way you want it to. So, in my opinion, like all this AI stuff is kind of like just a new piece of gear or a new technique that you learned. If you don't have taste and creativity, then you're probably not gonna. Yeah. So I was just wondering if you agree with that.
No, that's an excellent take on it. I wish I said it myself.
Yeah, taste and creativity.
Anyone else? All right, I got some questions. Warren.
Yes, sir.
How many times have you been in front of a mix and you say to yourself, okay, this is the greatest mix that I've ever done in my life, and then you get the call, we don't like the mix?
Every single mix that I spend too much time on the detail that happens. It's when I go too far on the detail. You know, if I get the mix sounding really, really great, I should just send it. As soon as I spend those extra 3 or 4 hours doing that crazy little reverb throw and that thing, things that becomes too Warren signature, Warren having too much fun, that's when I get pushback, because I feel like the artist feels like I've taken away their last little icing on the cake. I've done it for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The question, though, is how do you have that not affect you?
That's a tough one. I think not getting emotionally involved is quite a difficult one for all of us.
Because the point that I'm trying to make is to show you guys that, you know, even though it's Warren and Jaycen, we go through the same stuff that you guys do as well. We'll put our heart and soul into a mix, and then, you know, you'll be like, I'm the greatest mixer in the world. I can't wait for them to hear it. And then they'll come back and be very, very disappointed, and you're like, I don't know what to tell you. And then you do their rough or get it back to their rough, and then you don't understand what you're listening to when you're listening to their rough, and it's not even your mix anymore. So I tend to think in my lifetime, it's happened probably more than the normal engineer, just because I take so many risks and so many chances. But I just wanted to be known for you guys, so you, when you do go through and do that mix and have that, you know, trepidation of these types of notes, that you should never take it personal. You should always just walk right through it and understand it's just a person's suggestion. And how do you feel about that?
That's a tough one, because I'm trying to imagine it from your perspective. Because for me, if I'm hiring, in all seriousness, if I'm hiring Jaycen Joshua to mix my song, I want your ears and your take on it. If you're mixing anything of mine, I'm very unlikely to have any notes.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
But
But people don't. Then that's the thing. Like, it's so funny how someone will go into a Warren mix and love everything that you've ever done, and then when you do them, they're like, it just doesn't sound. It's like, well, the common denominator is your record.
Yeah, I had one a little while ago. I can't remember. Maybe when we talked before, I told you about this one. It was, I feel like it was I don't think it was a German, I think it was a Polish artist. And they sent me a mix, and it was like a rock band, and it was pretty heavy. And I was like, look, I like rock, but I don't go heavy, and I certainly don't do modern metal. I was like, you know, if you're coming to me to do, I was like, there's tons of people that will slam and smash and limit it and clip it and all of that stuff. I'm like, if you're coming to me, I work with like Aerosmith. I'm going to give it room. It's going to breathe. It's going to have depth. I was like, there's plenty of people much better of doing like modern metal and will enjoy it. It's not my thing. And he's like, no, I want you to do your thing. You know where this is going. So of course I did my thing. The drums sound like real drums. They sound like they're in a room. The snare's here, but there's ambience, whatever. And I sent it back, and he's like, you know, you completely missed it, and then sent me a reference of something which was just, you know, and I'm just like, I had this conversation with you. And so I feel like it's a weird disconnect, isn't it? That's my point. If I'm saying I will mix it, but it's not what I do, this is what I do. No, I want you to do it. It's a tough one. I would say probably 95% of the time, if somebody's being that way with you, they're kind of missing the point. Because if they want your ears and they want your experience, your acquired knowledge, then they should be trusting you to do that. And for me, of course, it's you're completely outside of my genre. So if you're doing something, you're bringing a lot more experience to it. If somebody comes to me to create a track that would be worthy of you mixing in your genre, you're the person I'm going to hire, because you're going to make what I do legitimate. Because that's not where I live. That's why people like Jaycen get hired, and why often I get hired, because somebody says, oh, I'm a little outside of my comfort zone. This is more what you do, Warren. Would you help me out? So yeah, it is a strange one. But I think when you're up and coming, that's a difficult one, of course, because you're still learning and you're not sure about things, you know. But yeah, it is an interesting one. It's like when I hire amazing musicians to play on recordings, it's like I'm hiring like 5 producers. Because if I get, I don't know, Sean Hurley to play bass on a track, I'm hiring a guy that has played on, you know, 100 top 10 singles. And his first instinct is probably going to be better than anything I dictate to him, because he's already been beaten up by 150 different producers, engineers, mixers, songwriters, band members. So all I need is to just kind of maybe give him a little bit of direction and say, you know, Sean, I'm feeling like kind of a Motown thing, maybe like either palm muted or something, think like that. That's all I need to say. And then he says, okay. And then so it's horses for courses, hiring the right people for the job. So, but yeah, in your position, that's a tough one. But I'm assuming what is it? Is it the big artists that are doing that? Or they're usually...
It's always the big artists know what they want, and they kind of understand how the game. It's always the newer artists that give you that. Another question that I wanted to ask that's kind of cool is because you're such a gearhead.
As are you, my friend. As are you.
But what is the plugin that you felt, holy shit?
Well, it was Soothe too. It was a common denominator. It was like I was going around, I was interviewing things, and for a while we would do this thing, when I remembered to do it, where I'd interview somebody and I'd say, hey, can we just do a quick 15-minute video where you tell me your top 5 plugins? And I did it with like 5 people in a row, and the only common denominator of all 5 people was Soothe, before the Soothe 2 came out. And I was like, I gotta know what this plugin is. It was like independently, none of these guys are on forums.
Is everyone here a fan of Soothe 2?
And he's right. It's Hannes, isn't it? The guy that runs the company who designed it is like he's 12 years old. I mean, he's probably 25. But you know, I'm joking. He's like super young, so he must have come up with that plugin like 5 years ago. He was probably 20. Really, really smart. Totally humble. Yeah.
You would never even realize that this guy created one of the better plugins. He looks just like my guy right here.
Wait there.
Hey, what are you doing there?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, you've all heard me harp on about it. You know, look, don't get me wrong. I love experience. You know, we're experienced. We've been doing this for years and years and years. But when it comes to like artists and people kicking down doors, it comes from kids. It doesn't come from privilege. It comes from the opposite. It comes from like wanting to prove something, you know? Even if you go to the Beatles, you know, people would say, what's the best Beatles album? Most people would say Revolver. If somebody said the top 10 albums of all time. Yeah.
A White Album.
Yeah, I'm a White Album. I'm actually a Let It Be fan, which really confuses people. But let's just say, you know, normally in those top 10 albums of all time, it's usually like Revolver's 1 or 2 in most people's lists. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm just saying it's obviously an amazing record. Jeff Emmerich was 19, turning 20 when he made that record. He was the engineer on the record. It was his first proper full-time engineering job, like, because he had done like one-off songs, but he was basically the tape op. And there was an EMI strike, and it was an EMI studio, and it was a union-run studio. So George Martin turns to Jeff and says, you know, Norman can't do this record. I suppose you're the engineer. So here's a guy who's never engineered a full album in his life, and now is considered to be one of the greatest albums ever made. You get my point. I love experience, and you would come to Jaycen for his experience. But when it comes to that initial creativity, it can come from anywhere, and it usually comes from kicking down doors and doing something. Like, what was the story he said where he goes to the staff engineer, whoever the head was, and says, is it okay if I put the microphone inside the kick drum so I get better isolation? He had to ask permission because of the increased sound pressure levels.
Jeez.
So, but that was the way of the world, you know. So I think that we have to remember, I feel like all of these kinds of conversations are very valid and exciting, but I don't know. I like the new stuff. Usually there's always a overuse in the wrong way. I usually joke about the DX7, you know, because you think of the classic theme tunes like Taxi, you remember a Rose or a Whirly, you know, all of it is amazing. And then Doogie Howser's like 3 years later, and it's a DX7, and it's like the worst, crappiest electric fake piano sound, you know. But that was because it was used because it was brand new, it was cutting edge. So there'll always be that thing. But when I was a kid, you'd buy a used DX7 and you'd put it through guitar pedals and amplifiers and come up with really crazy sounds from the synth. But that didn't come in initially. So I think that will happen with AI. There'll be a lot of absolute crap that will come out.
Is Spiff AI?
I suppose it must be.
No.
No machine learning at all?
Our AI, our developers saying no.
No, you don't think there's any machine learning in that? They went in there and none at all?
It's an amazing plugin. I thought it was.
Yeah. Right, yeah, but I think I think what they did.
What he say?
He's saying there's no AI in it, but I think what they did Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I think that there's a lot of machine learning that goes into this stuff where they sit there and they figure out like what choices should be made from it, whether it's specific. I know what you're saying. It's not like some of the kind of isotope plugins where they sit there and they analyze things and then create an average and all that stuff. But I think that in the process of creating it, I think is where it comes in.
Soothe?
It's a kind of very different processing where you have like the spectral visualizer from your EQ, where you see the separate frequencies. They are doing the same thing, but just in the signal and edit it. And I honestly don't think that there's AI in the plugin, like you said.
I think it's probably in the development learning. Because the thing is, if you just work on the theory of like this is too loud. Sorry, if you just work on the theory this is too loud, it needs to be cut. That's where everything sounds crap. Because then everything starts to sound flat, which is what happens a lot in those plugins. But if you take if you analyze, and find an average of how much you should cut something, you'll get a different result. So that's just where the machine learning comes into it.
Maybe.
I don't think it's employed inside the plugin, but I think they used it in quite often. This stuff is used in the decision making and how often you should do something. But yeah, you're right. It's not in the plugin itself. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, when we developed the God particle and as well with Orion, we used a lot of machine learning.
Right.
With regards to Orion, like to build each section of the drum bus, we basically had to machine learn each part of my drum bus. So they would just run countless amounts of mixes over and over and over again. Run the I forgot what it's called into it, and the machine basically develops a algorithm of exactly how it feels it should. That's exactly how that unit or that part of the plugin should work, and I think a lot, like you said, a lot of companies, because it's such the key word now, machine learning and AI, they use it so fluidly and so easily. But that's fascinating. I didn't know Soothe per se wasn't AI while running. I didn't know that.
No, my perception is exactly what you did. Just sit there and figure out, because if it's literally just applying a certain set of parameters, that's when things sound absolutely crap. Because otherwise, there's 1,000 different plugins that do what it does. But what it does is it does it far more intelligently and makes much better decisions, which would have to be taught.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but he's right. It doesn't sit there. It just says, when cutting this frequency, don't do X number of this, that, or the other. It creates a balance, which is really quite unique. Do you have another question?
I would love to know, what do you think about the legal stuff? I mean, in the AI world, there is so many ripping off and stealing. I mean, if you have, for example, pictures.
Can you give him back the mic? After this, no, this is a great question.
Yeah, and I mean, should we always do that because we can now with AI? I mean, I heard Johnny Cash's song "Hurt." Sing by Bart Simpson or whatever. Now you can do that because AI can learn the pattern. And should we be allowed to steal something? I mean, there should be some songs you should not alter with. Definitely. I think.
Isn't that what was the name of that American comedian in the 50s? Why am I blanking on his name? Where he was Jewish. And he was making jokes to try and get people to think about it, and then somebody got all pissed off with him and he goes, tell me something I shouldn't make fun of it and I'll make fun of it. I almost feel like then if somebody can do a fake Bart Simpson voice and sing over the song, does that make it, just because you did it with a tool, you know what I mean? I don't know, there's a really weird line there, isn't it? Because if Jaycen can do the world's greatest Bart Simpson thing and he decides to sing a song in Bart Simpson, should he get sued for it because it's his real voice, but now it's not good because it was done with the computer? I'm not saying you're advocating that. I'm just saying it's a weird line to move because it's just a tool to do an idea that somebody came up with.
But where's the line? I mean...
I don't think there is a line. Yeah, exactly.
As soon as you start making some money from it, then they'll trust me. They'll come out. You can do they have that one song by Drake and I think it was Drake AI with somebody else. Who? The Weeknd, yeah. And it was a fucking hit. It came out and it went viral and everybody was playing it and they were like, oh my God, it's AI. And you saw how fast that got taken down and you don't see it anywhere. So once you start making money on it, the companies will be on you. Right now, it's cool for fun. Like I have a lot of producers who do what Warren said with regards of taking the demo and saying, you know what, I want Ariana Grande to sing this demo, so then they'll have the AI-generated Ariana Grande sing the song. Now imagine how good the AI is going to be once Universal, once Warner, once Sony gives all their catalog for these AI companies to learn. It's going to be ridiculous. You're going to have stuff sounding better because they'll be on key, they'll be perfect. I mean,
I suppose what is the globally what is the overall question? What is the meaning of life? No, it's like, what are we worried about? I mean, it's a serious question. What are we actually worried about? Are we worried about
taking jobs? I think that's the main thing, is taking jobs.
Right, but the end.
We don't care. People don't care about having fun sounds and doing stuff and having it be easier and stuff like. They worry about, okay, am I not, like, for example, there's these AI mastering houses that are doing, all these that's taking money from mastering engineers. You know what I mean? That's I know it's going to be a little bit different in the AI world outside of music, but as of right now, I think that's the only concern for people with AI is losing.
So what time is it? What time is it?
Same topic.
Is it progress or what time is it not? We're actually getting the.
I think
we have to end.
I don't want to interrupt, but I think I'm also a bit afraid. Not really, but maybe if the AI is getting more original and more sexy than originals.
I'm not worried about that.
No, because at one point you get a new song from Drake featuring Weeknd, whatever, and you're like, "Oh, that's the shit! Give me more of that." And you see, we don't need the people anymore because the Universals, the majors, feeded all of the sexy originals in there, and now computers are copying all of the shit.
I don't disagree.
Spotify playlists are full of this. We don't get paid anymore. It's a bit of all of that, I think.
Yeah, but if it's Drake and Dr. Dre,
I'm not worried. But
yeah, if it's Drake, I don't know. Maybe those two camps don't get on. Drake and Weeknd. I would have thought lawyers would have got together and go, okay, we own this. We own this. This is how much you're paying us. This is how it's going to work. Maybe they just didn't want to do it. I don't know.
Can I have one last question to him?
All right, one last question.
You said in an interview once, I think on Despacito, you mixed it.
Yep.
That you are working with this parallel kind of, you separate like the lows and the highs, and you get with parallel compression all that what you need.
Yep.
Kind of. Do you still kind of work like this?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. We didn't know we were going to be able to talk much about AI, and then before you know it, it's like,
all AI.